Imagine the scene. It is November 1872, in the bustling salt-crusted harbor of Staten Island, New York. The air is thick with the smell of pine tar, hemp rope, and the cold Atlantic wind. Our main character is Captain Benjamin Briggs, a 37-year-old seasoned mariner with a reputation for severe technical discipline and sobriety. Visualize Briggs, a man of high moral character, standing on the deck of the Mary Celeste, a merchant brigantine. He is not alone. Beside him is his wife, Sarah, and their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia. The power dynamic on the ship is one of domestic order meeting maritime precision. The crew consists of 7 experienced sailors, handpicked for their efficiency. The cargo is critical: 1,700 barrels of industrial alcohol, a volatile and high-pressure chemical payload. This is the primary behavioral data point. Briggs is a man who knows the risks of his cargo. On November 7th, the ship hauls anchor and disappears into the horizon, bound for Genoa, Italy. The routine in the days leading up to the departure was one of quiet preparation. Neighbors saw a happy family. The crew saw a competent leader. But as the ship moves into the open ocean, the architecture of their safety is about to be sabotaged by a force that leaves no visible wounds. The archive is open. The timeline of the total deletion of the Mary Celeste crew begins with the last log entry, made with a steady hand. Technical density expansion. The Mary Celeste was a 282-ton brigantine with a hull depth of 11 feet. The industrial alcohol cargo was specifically 95% pure ethanol, which has a flash point of 13 degrees Celsius. At the time of departure, the barometric pressure was a stable 29.9 inches, indicating fair weather that would soon be compromised by a localized atmospheric sabotage in the mid-Atlantic. The investigation shifts to December 5, 1872. Another ship, the Dei Gratia, is moving through the waters between the Azores and Portugal. The captain, David Morehouse, who is a personal friend of Briggs, spots a ship drifting aimlessly. Imagine the scene through a telescope. The sails are tattered, but the ship is upright. There is no signal of distress, no smoke, and most importantly, no one on deck. This is a technical void. Morehouse sends a boarding party to investigate. As they step onto the deck of the Mary Celeste, the first forensic data point is the silence. The ship is a ghost. The sails are partially set. The rigging is a messy and unsolved tangle, but the hull is perfectly sound. Imagine the search through the cabins. The beds are unmade, a child's toy lies on the floor, and a sewing machine sits frozen in time. The power dynamic has shifted from a functional crew to a total atmospheric deletion. Every crime leaves a trace, but here, the trace is the presence of everything except the people. The table is set for a meal that was never eaten. The timeline shows that the last entry in the ship's log was made 10 days earlier, on November 25th. For 10 days, this ship has been a drifting tomb, sailing itself through the Atlantic swells. Technical density expansion. Forensic analysis of the ship's log confirmed the last position was 37 degrees north, 25 degrees west. The sounding rod, used to measure water in the hold, was found abandoned on the deck, suggesting a hurried technical audit of the ship's buoyancy shortly before the exclusion event. Imagine the scene in the lower hold as the investigators move through the shadows. They are checking the 1,700 barrels of alcohol. This is the chemistry of the mystery. Upon counting, they find that 9 barrels are empty. These barrels were made of red oak, a more porous within the white oak used for the rest of the cargo. This is a critical forensic marker, a leak. We analyzed the technical sabotage of the cargo. If the alcohol had leaked and vaporized in the high humidity of the hold, it would have created a lethal, invisible pressure. Imagine the sound of the hatches blowing open as the fumes expanded. To an experienced captain like Briggs, this would sound like an impending explosion. The clinical reconstruction of the scene shows that the ship's only lifeboat was not lost. It was launched. The davits were swung out, and the main rope, the painter, was found trailing in the water, frayed and broken. The trace suggests a panicked but organized evacuation. They didn't fall overboard, they left. The question remains, why would a master mariner abandon a perfectly seaworthy ship for a tiny boat in the middle of the ocean? Technical density expansion. Ethanol vapor is twice as heavy as air and highly combustible at concentrations between 3% and 19%. The red oak barrels would have allowed for an evaporation rate of 0.5% per day, creating a localized explosive atmosphere in the unventilated hold, leading to a flash vapor event that produced sound and heat without leaving scorch marks. The investigation moves to the cold reality of the Atlantic swells. Imagine 10 people crowded into a small wooden lifeboat, tethered to the Mary Celeste by a single rope. This was their technical bridge back to safety. We analyzed the environmental sabotage that followed. A sudden storm or a change in the current would have put immense tension on that rope. Imagine the sound of the hemp fibers snapping. In an instant, the Mary Celeste, with its sails still catching the wind, would have pulled away, moving faster than the men could row. Imagine the intense expressions of Captain Briggs as he watched his ship, his home, and his only hope drift into the fog, leaving them in a biological void. There is no room for philosophy here, only the physics of the sea. Without food, water, or a sextant, the 10 souls were deleted from the world. No trace of a lifeboat was ever found. Every crime of nature leaves a trace, and here, the trace is the missing rope. The reconstruction of the current shows they would have been carried toward the African coast, but the vastness of the ocean is a master of forensic erasure. Technical density expansion. The breaking strength of a 2-inch manila hemp rope is approximately 4,000 pounds. In a sea state of 4 on the Beaufort scale, the dynamic load of a 282-ton ship pulling against a stationary lifeboat would exceed this threshold in milliseconds, leading to a catastrophic mechanical separation. When the Mary Celeste was brought into Gibraltar, the investigation was met with a wall of institutional suspicion. Imagine the courtroom. The Attorney General, Solly Flood, was convinced there was a messy and unsolved crime. He suspected a mutiny or a murderous plot by the Dei Gratia crew to claim salvage money. He pointed to a blood stain on a sword found under Briggs's bed. This was a forensic sabotage of the truth. Modern analysis has proven that the stain was not blood, but filtered iron rust. Imagine the character of Morehouse, a man who had just saved his friend's ship, being treated like a killer. The power dynamic between the law and the mariners was absolute. The investigators ignored the technical evidence of the leaking barrels and focused on a narrative of violence. They searched for a trace of a struggle, but found only the quiet remains of a family life. The exclusion of the Briggs family was turned into a tabloid scandal, deleting the dignity of the victims for the sake of a sensational story. Technical density expansion. The sword was a common 19th-century navigational tool used for clearing brush or light defense. Spectroscopic analysis in the 20th century confirmed the absence of hemoglobin, debunking the mutiny theory that had stalled the forensic closure of the case for over a century. To understand the deletion of the crew, we must analyze the biology of fear in a confined space. Captain Briggs was responsible for his wife and child. Imagine the psychological pressure when the smell of alcohol fumes began to seep into the living quarters. The sensory sabotage of the nose, the sharp, stinging scent of ethanol, would have signaled an imminent fire. We analyze this as a perceived lethal environment. To Briggs, the ship had become a bomb. The clinical reconstruction of his decision-making shows a man who chose a temporary risk, the lifeboat, over an absolute one. This is a behavioral trace of a protector. The fact that he left his chronometer and the ship's papers behind indicates the speed of the panic. He didn't plan to leave for long. He planned to wait for the fumes to clear. But the ocean doesn't allow for technical pauses. The exclusion was a result of a mother's instinct and a father's duty, sabotaged by the mechanical failure of 9 porous barrels. Technical density expansion. Human olfactory fatigue occurs rapidly with ethanol, but the initial detection threshold is as low as 100 parts per million. In the enclosed space of the captain's cabin, the concentration likely reached levels that induced dizziness and respiratory distress, accelerating the transition from rational management to emergency evacuation. The Mary Celeste was returned to service, but it remained a marked ship. Imagine the sailors who refused to board her, convinced she was cursed. This is a psychological rastro that followed the wood and the iron. The ship eventually ended its life in 1885, when a different captain intentionally wrecked it for insurance money. This was a final act of criminal sabotage. We analyzed the ship as a technical artifact of a mystery that was never truly solved in its time. The forensic audit of the Mary Celeste mystery teaches us that in the absence of bodies, the mind creates monsters. But the truth was in the barrels, the wind, and the rope. The deletion of the 10 souls remains one of the most clinical and silent events in maritime history. Every piece of evidence, the unmade beds, the tattered sails, the broken rope, tells a story of a family that vanished into the blue. Technical density expansion. The insurance fraud of 1885 involved the deliberate grounding of the ship on Rochelois Reef. The subsequent legal proceedings provided further insight into the ship's structural integrity which had remained largely unchanged since the 1872 event, proving that the ship had never been unseaworthy from a mechanical standpoint. The final minute-by-minute reconstruction of Dossier 19 ends here. 10 lives deleted in the mid-Atlantic, leaving a ship that sailed itself as the only witness. The trace left by Captain Briggs and his crew is a lesson in the severe power of environmental and cargo sabotage. The biological facts are immutable: a family gone, a crew lost, and a mystery that has survived for over a century. The Mary Celeste remains the definitive study in maritime deletion and the challenges of forensic reconstruction without a crime scene. Your mind is the final piece of this investigation. Imagine joining our community by clicking the subscribe button. Help us track the traces that the sea and time try to hide. I am your guide through the darkness, and I will return with a new dossier very soon. Keep your mind sharp. Imagine the scene with your eyes closed. And remember, every ship that drifts tells a story, even when the crew is long gone. This is Mind 74, and we are the keepers of the cold files. The investigation is suspended, but the file remains open. Until next time. Technical density expansion. The Mary Celeste incident resulted in the complete revision of hazardous cargo ventilation protocols in maritime law. The total exclusion of the Briggs lineage at sea remains a terminal marker in 19th-century victimology.